Hey, it's Christine from Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Nick Vatterott talks about trying to get stage time in Istanbul.
I'm doing really good, right? So I have this bit, and I thought a physical bit would work. I was like, I'm now going to Irish river dance for you, but only from the waist up. And the bit was I would always just put my hands on my hips and just bobble my head around. That was like the whole bit. So I'm trying to do the words for it. And I was like, Salande, Elande dance. So that's what I think it is. All of a sudden I hear, Salande Ande. And I look over, Ali Beaver, who's the DJ, who's about 3 feet away from the stage, starts screaming my own material to me, correcting me how I'm saying it. So I'm like, Salon, Alande dance. He's like, Salon, Alande dance. I was like, Salon, Alande dance. He's like screaming it at me. And I'm like just trying to hold it together.
Today on the show, comedian Nick Vatterott talks about trying to get stage time in Istanbul. Happy New Year, and stay close.
Hey, it's Nick Vatterott, and you are listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy, and Happy New Year, by the way. I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week. Now, that was the best of Storyworthy 2021. And, you know, I chose 4 stories, right? But are they the best? I don't know. I mean, I like them, and I chose them because I was moved when I was told the story. But is it like my favorite guest or my favorite, you know what I mean? So it's very vague and it's subjective. So listen, the point is it's good, and the stories are all great. One is by Molly Heckerling. Molly Heckerling, that's the funniest story. One of the funniest stories, honestly, Nick, I ever heard. Because Molly Heckerling, she talks about Gilbert Gottfried getting into fights with her babysitter when she was a little kid, because her mom is Amy Heckerling, and Amy was friends with Gilbert, so he would come around the house a lot for free food.
That's so funny.
And anyway, yeah, it's a really
and I assume the Gilbert voice comes out at times. Or does she respectfully let him be?
Well, it's not that. It's just
that's the most fun impression.
Yeah, it's just that he's just so funny, and he has to make fun of everything, and it all ends up he's making fun of this woman's family in the Holocaust. I mean, just as dark as you can get. That's Gilbert Gottfried. So anyway, that's a great story. And then also we talked to, also on the show last week was broadcaster Steve Mason from ESPN's Mason in Ireland. And Steve talks about being a disc jockey and doing this stunt that had him buried alive for 48 hours.
No way.
Put in a coffin.
Insane.
Under the ground. 48 hours. Like, he didn't eat for 2 days before because there was no way to, like, relieve yourself. And you know how you guys go back, listen to the story, but I will tell you this. You know how he got through the second night? There was like a pulley system of stuff that could come down, like water or whatever. And he was on the air the whole time. You know, the whole time he's doing this stunt, he's on the air with his radio fans. Even when he's sleeping, they're there with him. But they sent down a bottle of NyQuil, and he chugged the NyQuil and then was in fact like dead to the world.
Ooh, that's so creepy.
I know, but it's a good story. So that's another one. And then let's see what else. Oh shit, man. Chris Gethard. Do you know Chris Gethard?
Yes. I listened to that episode. Chris is one of the best storytellers there are.
He sure is, man. Oh, my God. He tells this story about being in his New York apartment with his new son and having a Christmas tree delivered to the house. And the guy that delivers the Christmas tree is just like creepy as hell. And it's such a great story. Really holds you on the end of your, puts you on the edge of your seat. And when he was done telling it, the first thing I was like, Chris, this has to be a play.
Right.
it has to be a play. It's almost like The Burning Bed or one of those, when there's, what was the one that Farrah Fawcett was in and then she ended up in the fireplace or something? What was that
I don't know.
Extremities?
I don't know.
Was it called Extremities?
I'm going to put it in my queue, though. It sounds
Farrah
amazing.
Fawcett was a fine actress. I want to tell you that right now. You know that. She was a great actress.
Was she a Charlie Angel?
She was, but only for 1 year. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Anyway, the Angels were not on the best of episode, but we did have one more person on last week, and that was Jackie the Joke Man Martling.
Nice.
Yeah, comedian Jackie Martling. He talks and he shares a story about being in Las Vegas with him and Rodney Dangerfield. So that's a great end to the best of 2021. Yeah, so go back, you guys, listen to that, but not today, because today I'm here with another really talented person, comedian Nick Vatterott. And Vatterott is a last name I never heard before. Vatterott.
I had never heard of it either, until they gave it to me. And I was like, all right, we're going to go with this, I guess.
No, but what is Vatterott? What?
It's German, and it's, my father told me, I guess he found out, apparently he says it's something meaning vat, meaning barrel, and root has some sort of association with beer. And he says it means like vat of beer. I don't know if that's really where it came from. And I wish I would have found that out before college when it would have been a fun party story instead of like when I was in my late 30s and nobody really cares how much you drink anymore.
You're the only Nick Vatterott. I know that.
There's others.
Nuh-uh. Really?
Well, I think we're all related, but it's funny because I got the handle of all the social medias, and then finally one of the younger ones, of course, got the TikTok handle before I did, and I tipped my hat to him.
Yeah, sure. And you could be the real, or like the real Nick Vatterott.
I always love the real, the real, because I love to shame all the other.
Yes, that's right.
Other
that's
Nick
right.
Vatterotts.
So today you bring forth the topic trying to get stage time in Istanbul, and
yes,
I was in Istanbul about 5 years ago, and I do
amazing.
I do remember, the cool area on the Asia side. I can't remember. What's the cool area? Like, it's kind of hip.
There's Taksim Square.
Yeah, Taksim Square.
But that's on the European side, I think, right? I think I spent most of my right. But there's not the Spice Market. You're not talking about
the
like
Spice
the big bazaar
Market.
thing.
No, wait, the Spice Market, is that the Asian side?
Gosh, I didn't spend too much time on the Asian side. We went over there, went to like one mosque or one like museum or something, and it came back.
You probably did the the big one. Why can't I think of it right now? The
blue one?
Yeah, there's the blue mosque.
There's the blue one and then the non-blue one. Those are the two that I remember.
No,
they're both pretty cool.
It's the Hagia Sophia. Right?
Okay,
and half of it was Christian and half was Muslim. It's not Muslim. It was, half Christian and half, what's that religion called again? Islam.
Oh, right. Yes.
You didn't know there was going to be a quiz today, did you?
No. And it's funny. Go ahead.
Recently, it is now completely one huge mosque. They kicked the Christians out. That's it. But, okay, so that's the Asian side where Sophia, the Blue Mosque, and the Spice Market. Then you cross the Bosphorus, and now you're on the European side. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I spent most of my time, unless I had it backwards, I spent most of my time on the European side.
It really doesn't matter.
And we crossed the Bosphorus and went to something that was like kind of overlooking the Bosphorus. Some beautiful, maybe the one you were talking about.
The thing.
That must have been, yeah.
But I do remember seeing, like in quotes here, I'm saying, like a comedy club, because it said on the outside of the club, it said like comedy. And so I thought, that's a comedy club, but I didn't try to go in.
And it's so funny it's in English, too.
Yeah.
Because everything's in Turkish there, and the comedy club's in English. And you're like, because I remember it was, the one I went to was called Old City Comedy Club. Mm-hmm. And it's just pretty crazy. It's just straight up in English.
How funny is it that everybody smokes over there?
Yeah, what I really loved. So the only reason I was over there is because I was working on a cruise ship for Second City at the time. And we did this amazing international cruise, and all the places I went to, like going to like Egypt and Istanbul, like those types of places were just Morocco, were just they're just so different.
Right.
And that's what was so cool, I thought, to me, you know, to really experience a different life for a little bit.
Because it's...
But yeah, smoking everywhere.
Smoking everywhere. I know what you're saying, though, because it's not just the language. It's the smells. It's the even the temperature, maybe. And the letters are different. And the money is different. You know, it really is. It's much more foreign than going to Australia or England or even Paris.
Right. Yeah, you can sort of, you know, when you go to like, because I started out like in the UK in the cruise.
Yeah.
And that's like a little easier way into foreign territory.
Yeah, that's
it's not the same thing.
Yeah, even in Europe, in the general populace of Europe, they all speak English. But then once you start hitting the Middle East, they start like throwing their middle finger to English. They don't want to speak English.
Yeah, I mean, it's but then you get some people that are excited to speak English. You know, they get, you know, which was my experience at the club. You have some people that like, you get some people that you could tell they can speak it and they don't want to speak it. They kind of want to mess with you, you know. And then you get some people that catch that you speak English. They want to speak with you a little bit, you know. But yeah, and you get like the prayers are, you know, like pumped through speakers throughout the day, and that like adds to like sort of the ambiance of being in a different place.
Yeah, isn't that
a different culture? It's very cool.
Yeah, isn't that amazing when that's going on? When I was there, I was on a cruise as well, and you know, you hear these calls to prayer, and it is 5 times a day, and they don't miss a beat. I mean, it's a schedule, and boy, that is different, isn't it?
Right. That's because we don't take anything like that as seriously in America. We don't even take our own jobs that seriously to stop and do your work at a certain time or whatever.
Right.
You know. And did you go to the what I thought one of the coolest experiences there was the Turkish baths?
Oh yeah.
Did you do that?
Totally. Yeah. Very very interesting.
So cool. It's like, what is it, like hundreds of years old? Well, I think it was the oldest baths in the world.
They're like, it's like really out of quarries, right? Is it kind of like, you know, cut out of rock? Is that how they make these?
Yeah. I mean, like I remember this, you know, so I would go, it was very fun. I got to go with my Second City castmates who were all so funny. So we got to joke around and have fun during the whole time. And it's so, we got to go have this experience, right? And we went there, you know, and I'm a guy who's like, you know, I'm one of those guys that doesn't like to be touched and doesn't like to get a massage or any of that stuff, you know. But I'm like, hey, let's lean into this. Let's do this. You know, you go there and they there's a lot of, you know, because of the language difference, there's a lot of grunting and pointing to communicate, you know, so they throw me at some towels and point to a changing room, and you walk in there and you're like, am I supposed to be naked? Because I don't want to have an international incident on our hands if I, come out naked and they're like, this is a sacred place. You can't be like that here. And then you like just throw the dice. You're like, I'm going to go for it, you know, and you put the towel on and you're just walking around and you're like, okay, I took a swing and this was the right thing to do. And
did you?
We went into one room. Yeah. The first room we went into was this. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, did you get a massage or did you just kind of sit in the spas?
Did the whole thing. I mean, it was. I got
the whole thing.
Yeah, I got rubbed down, waxed up, beaten, you know, tan, sold, you know. I mean, like they did just everything to me, you know. Like it was borderline torture at one point. At one point, I was like, I think I'm just paying them to beat the crap out of me. But it was amazing. So like the beginning is they throw you in this like giant, beautiful, hundreds of year old like It's got like a dome roof, chiseled, moons and stars are chiseled out of the stone ceiling, and its steam is everywhere. There's these hallways in the circular room. There's like kind of hallways going down, and you just hear screams that just of like, what's going on down there? Just sound like torture rooms, and it's just something out of like a Jason Statham movie. It's just like yeah. And then like I remember like I laid down on there's this giant stone bed rock in the middle of like the whole room, and this guy comes out, kind of grunts at me, throws this thing down on me. I'm laying down, and then he walks away. And I'm looking at it, and it's got like it's like a white cloth, and it's got two strings around it, and it's like a pouch. And I'm kind of staring at it. I'm like, I don't know what that's for. And like 5 minutes go by, and the guy is not back yet. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what is this for? Am I supposed to do something with this? And I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, I am naked, and he is going to rub me down. I bet I'm supposed to put this on. I bet this is like some sort of like undergarment that I'm supposed to put on my genitals to sort of, And so, yes.
Like a loincloth.
A little string, tie it. So I go to, after like 10 minutes of being like, well, I don't want to mess with this. I was like, all right. So I go to grab it. As I grab it, he comes out of nowhere, yanks it out of my hands, and puts it on his hand. It was like his exfoliation glove or something like that. And I was about to wear it like it was a jockstrap. I mean, could you imagine if he came out and I'm just sitting there like proud of myself? I figured it out. I figured out your culture.
Now, your friends, you were each in a different room at that point, right?
This one was such a big room. We were all kind of in the same room.
That must have been so much fun.
So fun. So amazing. And because it would have been such a, to be by myself or, it would have been, we did get divided up, after that whole thing, that was like he kind of scrubs you down. And then they take you over to like the different rooms and rub you down. And then there was one room that was just a guy pouring a bucket of water over my head for like 5 minutes. I mean, I think that's what they do in Guantanamo Bay. I'm not quite sure.
No, I did not do this Turkish bath. No, when you first said that, I was thinking of those cisterns. We went into those cisterns under the ground, and it kind of looks like Phantom of the Opera, like those canals and stuff.
Oh, cool. I did not do that. That sounds awesome.
And that has that kind of a sauna, and I was thinking that's a Turkish bath, but no, that was a different thing. I got to do that. How long were you there?
I feel like it was like a solid
day and a half.
Yeah. I was there for 3 years, and they finally let me out. I'm not allowed to go back in the country. Again, I think I was arrested. I think this was a prison of sorts.
Well, I'm really excited to hear your story about trying to get stage time over there in Istanbul. But before we get to that story, I wanted to talk to you about your new special called Disingenuous. It is so wonderful. You guys can find Disingenuous on Amazon Prime, iTunes, Google Play, and it's on Vimeo. It's so darn good, Nick. I'm telling you, I am so impressed.
Well, thank you.
Disingenuous, you were at a club in New York, right?
It's yes, it's sort of all over the place. We did Littlefield in New York, but a lot of it was in Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. Because the audience in New York, you had such a great audience, first of all. They were on board for everything you did. And what was so funny about this comedy special is because sometimes you just run out of the club. And now all of a sudden, like, we're on Hollywood Boulevard, or you're looking for this girl, Jebra. What is that name, Jebra, by the way?
Well, all right. Well, here's the thing. You know what it is? So I have a bit where I thank my longtime supportive girlfriend for being there. And I say, let's give her a round of a hand. And she's not there, and that's sort of the joke. And then it's, me setting up how she's always supportive and I can't find her. I don't know where she is.
But where did you get the name Jebra? I never heard that name.
Well, I kept saying names, and then there would always inevitably be some girl in the audience who would I would go, give it up for Melissa. And then a girl named Melissa would go, hi. And I'd be like, oh, well, that sort of pooches the bit. So I try to, so then I said Deborah because I was like, there's no way there's not a lot of, I don't meet a lot of Deborahs. So I don't think there's a Deborah. And then 2 shows in a row, there was a Deborah there. And I was like, oh, because I did it once. I was like, well, no way there's 2 Deborahs, another Deborah. So I was like, that's it. I go, I'm going to say a name that there's no possible way there's somebody in the audience. So Deborah became Jebra. And I was like, let's see if there's a Jebra in the audience. And there wasn't a Jebra. And Jebra was born. It came out of me and my buddies would always do bits. When we would do improv, improvisers always love to make up dumb names. And we would always, I think we always loved like sort of gender bending names like Gary Beth, or Jimberly, like those type of names always were fun to throw in scenes. And so I think that's where Jebra kind of came from too.
That's really funny. Yeah, it's so clever. Oh my gosh. This comedy special, I'm telling you, you are all over the place in the beginning of the bit, but it's in such a good way. Your mind works so quickly. You're doing a lot of physical comedy.
Oh, thank you.
Just your eye rolls and just your characters that you do very subtly. It's like you really take the audience on a ride. I am so impressed, really. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of staring in the mirror and practicing eye faces, different. I try a lot of facial expressions out of my friends. I'll be like, hey, has Gaffigan done this facial expression before? And I'll try that. And I'll be like, nah, man. So I'll throw that in there.
Well, even if he did it before, you do it differently, right? I mean, there's only so many. Because I don't know that much about the world of improv, but isn't that true? Like, in other words, if you're in an improv troupe or you're an improv person, and somebody's got that crazy Russian baker bit,
right?
And then you do a Russian baker bit. I mean, I'm not saying you steal it, but there's a lot of Russian bakers.
Oh yeah, and everybody has their own take on things too. It's I really think not a lot of stealing happens. Sometimes there's a similar bit, and there is some stealing. Somebody straight up stole Sam Morrill's bit the other day, and it was like, it was word for word his same thing.
Wow.
And,
which bit? Because I follow Sam a lot.
It's the bit where he's talking about dating is like finding a parking spot, I think. And he's done it in specials. I think he even did it.
Oh my God.
I want to even say he did it in
Who stole that?
Some gamer did it while he was like on his YouTube channel, and then acted like he was stream of consciousness coming up with it. It's like verbatim.
Oh, what an idiot. They get called out so fast.
But and a lot of people kind of don't care is the weird thing. They're just like, but it's funny, so who cares? And it's like, well, Sam's like, I can't do comedy if I don't make money from it. So it kind of, this steals money from me, it's not like this is just sort of.
No, I hear you. I hear you completely. But let me tell you,
the world.
I had Jackie the Joke Man on, like I said, he's in the best of, but when I had him on, I asked him about, the jokes that he does, and I asked him if he ever does anything personal, like my girlfriend is this, or I have this, or I don't have kids, or like talk about yourself, Jackie, do you ever do that? And he's like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, but you're doing all these other people's jokes, like classic jokes. And he says, well, if you get up there and do Shakespeare, you aren't Shakespeare. You didn't write it, and you're up there saying it. That's to say that there can't be any cover bands, or that's to say that there can't be any, entertainment that you didn't create.
Yeah, I think
So I thought that was an interesting take. I know it's him specifically.
Right. And he presents himself, I don't think he's ever passed himself off as somebody who's saying, I wrote all this material myself.
No.
And Gilbert Gottfried, who we were talking about, who's an amazing comedian, one of the funniest, he does a lot of, street jokes as well. But he presents, last time I saw him at Caroline's, a number of years ago, I think he closed his set out with doing street jokes, but he sort of, and it was so funny. I was in tears laughing, and I'm so glad he did it.
Yeah.
And but he's not passing. I think that's when you can do it, but you just kind of can't like present it as if is your own. You can't be playing a video game and acting like it's coming off the top of your head, I think.
Yeah, you just can't start talking about Hot Pockets and
right. Yeah. And then start doing the voice and being like, I think Hot Pockets are pretty good. You can't go into a Hollywood pitch meeting and be like, here you go. I got an idea. There's this guy, Macbeth, right? Okay, now he is just tragic beyond tragic, right? And I think that's when it gets a little...
You make me laugh. Yeah, that's so funny. All right, well, we're going to get over to your story in just a second, but I did want to tell everybody that Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is back and live at the Hollywood Improv Saturday, January 22nd. At 7 o'clock. That's right. That's an early show, 7 o'clock. But do get your tickets, you guys. You can go over to storysmashshow.com and check out the website, or you can also follow Story Smash on Insta and get your tickets over there. Please come on out, guys. We're laughing our butts off. Blanca Patch will be there. Danny Zucker. Saturday, January 22nd at the Hollywood Improv. All right, you guys, he's here right now. You've heard him talking. Nick Vatterott. He is a comedian. And like I said, he has a new comedy special out right now, Disingenuous. And it really is funny. So if you've got a free hour, you've got to watch it. You can get it on Amazon Prime, like I said, or Google Play, iTunes, or anywhere on video or Vimeo. Yeah, or Vimeo.
Yeah, Vimeo. Some people all over the world have problems with Amazon and iTunes. Vimeo all over the world.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. And you have been on Conan and Late Night with Jimmy Fallon and Comics Unleashed. You've had so many, you're very accomplished, Nick. You've been doing this for a long time. I really enjoy the podcast you have with Nick Turner. So it's Nick Turner, Nick Vatterott, and the name of the show is Get Rich Nick. Get Rich Nick, and it's such a clever idea.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead, Nick. Tell them about the podcast.
Oh, well, you know what? If as you know, I think when a story is like sort of the biggest driver of podcasts. When me and Turner were trying to think of something to do, and they were kind of thinking of like the elements of a good podcast. And I think I think some of the biggest elements is if you learn something, people like to learn something in their podcast, and a story that pulls the thing together is huge, and if you can bring any sort of humor to it, I think that is also advantageous. And so we thought it would be funny to do a podcast where we just try to get rich every week. And the Three Stooges, I always make this comparison. Basically, they were just trying to get work a lot of episodes. Yeah. It was just them trying to make money and it falling apart. And we sort of got a little derailed because of the pandemic. And last year was so crazy with like the Dogecoin and the AMC stocks. And because we sort of like followed those stories, or actually we were ahead of the stories before it all unfolded, but we wanted, originally the podcast was us like having somebody on that made money off of betting on horses, and we would go to the horse track and try our luck, or we would go down to Mexico and try to, visit their pharmaceutical tourism and sneak stuff across the border.
Right. That's hilarious.
We did.
My God.
One of the, I think best episodes is we had my buddy on from college who went on The Price is Right and won. Right. And so we decided to do that. And so we went on The Price is Right, and Nick Turner wound up getting on, and
he got selected.
He got selected, and you'll have to listen to the episode to see what happens.
Oh my gosh.
But it's a pretty amazing ending of what happened.
Wow, I really would. That's really great. I'll definitely listen to that. Super fun.
Here's a tip. If you want to be on The Price is Right, just any sort of personality. Just have any sort of personality. When we were in line, and everybody they interviewed was just like, "Hi, what's your name? Where you from?" And they're like, "I'm from Iowa. I want to meet Bob. Bob's not here. Okay, it's Drew now." But Nick and these three other people were just charming and interesting and funny, and they all three got picked.
But where did they say they were from? That's the other thing. They don't want you to be from LA.
Turner did say he was from Virginia, which he's originally from Virginia. I think he said he was a karaoke DJ from Richmond, Virginia. And,
perfect.
Because if you're from Hollywood,
they don't want you to be a comic from LA.
Exactly,
No.
exactly.
You have to have a real. But I've gone down there too. I didn't get selected, but
what? You were robbed.
I laughed so hard. I thought the whole thing was so funny. Now this is like 20 years ago, and Bob Barker was there. But I just thought the whole thing was so, like, it's so antiquated. Like that wheel is barely turning. It's just so bad.
Yeah, it's funny. I work over in that studio, and so I'll walk around and look at all of the I love stages, and it's crazy to me, those podiums. The podiums that you've watched your whole life. They got the sequence and they're flash. You look at the back of them; they're not painted. There's splinters. You can see nails coming out of it. They don't do. If you can't see it, they don't put any. And it's so funny that it's like this is like something I would build in my shed. It is rickety. The wheel.
That's what I mean. And so I'm watching it, and I'm like, is this an elementary school play?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like such a joke. Yeah. But on TV, for some reason, it doesn't come across that way.
The magic of the television really add, like, an element that really put this polish on it. You can't tell. I mean, you've been in that studio. That studio is tiny. It's itsy bitsy, and you're like, no, this is the stage that I think Carol Burnett was on that stage. I think All in the Family was. They did all these like shows through over the years, and you get there, like, this is the size of my garage.
It's like, how do they fly in like this crane to make it look like this whole huge stage? And it's just not.
Yeah, what they can do with television, and it's always interesting too when you do like getting to do like Jimmy Fallon and Conan, and you get there and you're like, wow, this is all the space they're giving you. You're the biggest show on television. You're the biggest talk show, and this is all the space they give you. You're cramming all this into one. It's magic of TV.
Now, I'll tell you something. About 20 years ago, or even 24 years ago, when I first got to Los Angeles, one of my first jobs was as a PA over at Paramount. Okay. And it was great because I learned about everything. I got to see the sets. I got to understand. And so I was not a PA, but like a tour guide slash... I was a page. Mm-hmm. So I would seat people, like for that show, Dharma and Greg.
Oh, fun.
And the other shows were, I did the Lisa show, and I did Frasier.
Oh, cool.
And I remember doing the wait a minute, who was it? Who had the talk show late night? Basketball player. Who had that late night show?
Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson. Yeah, I'm thinking. I was going to say Michael Jordan. Magic Johnson has that late night show. Mm-hmm. I'm a page on that show. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Howard Stern was on, and that was like a crazy thing. And anyway, then all of a sudden it got canceled. That show got canceled. So let's say it was on Friday and we had taped Friday night. Mm-hmm. And then when the show was over, they announced that the show's canceled. When I went to work on Saturday morning, there was nothing in that stage.
Right,
nothing.
Right.
It was gone. It was like there was never a Magic Johnson show. It was crazy,
Hollywood's good like that. They can make something disappear.
I mean, just you're out. Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, it's just, when you think of that, and I remember it making an impact on me in terms of like, doesn't matter how famous you are, they're going to, if you're out, you're out. And they just move so quickly. It's just so... It's not personal. It's just the business goes quickly.
Yeah, and it's
a lot of a lot of turnover in the industry.
It's also like just sort of all these other people that work behind the camera, how amazing they are at their jobs. When I to go over and see how fast The Price is Right gets torn down and the next show gets put up is just insane. I mean, they do Real Time with Bill Maher on the same set as they do The Price is Right. And it's insane to be like, wait, those two shows are on the same space? It's like, yep.
Are they now? Are they really?
Yep. And they
wow.
and it's just and they're like these magicians that just, I mean, what completely different One's like sleek nighttime talk show. The other one's like bright, jubilant, game show. And they just, and like,
it is amazing.
In 20 minutes, they just turn it around that fast. And it's amazing.
Yeah. They're craftsmen. Yeah. I mean, I guess they're carpenters and craftsmen and artists and designers and people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Thank God we've got them. Am I right?
Yep. 10,000. Thank goodness. I wouldn't. Yeah. Can you imagine just Drew Carey trying to tear it all down himself, being like, where does this go again? I always forget.
I remember hearing a story about Drew Carey moving.
Yes.
And he's carrying all these boxes out, and his friend's like, hey, Drew, you could hire somebody to do this.
Yeah, that's so funny.
You guys can find Nick over at his website, nickvatterott.com, and you can also follow him on Twitter at Nick Vatterott. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Nick Vatterott.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, basically, I picked this story because, Disingenuous is about me running around a city and trying to get up and do stand-up. And I always thought, like, those types of specials appealed to me more because it showed what it's like to really do, stand-up. It's not always in these big things. Chris Gethard mentioned that on his episode. It's not always in these big, giant places. And I always loved the hustle of, like, trying to go somewhere and trying to get up. I was working for Second City on a cruise ship going all around the world, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And we were in Istanbul, and we got there and we were walking around the city, and as we mentioned earlier, there was this place in Taksim Square, which is kind of like one of their big, going out areas. That was the Old City Comedy Club. And I said to my buddy, Dean Evans, I was like, we got to go. We got to go watch this. So we go in and they're like, they don't speak English here. We don't care. We want to see, Turkish comedy. And so,
wait, what was this at night? Like it was a regular show?
This was a midnight.
You pay the money.
Midnight show on Saturday. They did stand up all throughout the week, but on Saturday nights at midnight, they did short form improv. Whose line is it anyway? Style, which was pretty awesome. And it was in full Turkish, and we go in, and we didn't know what was going on, but it's funny, we could still figure out some of the devices, that work. Like they do this game called Blind Line. And Blind Line, the audience gives suggestions. They write it on a piece of paper. Then actors do a scene. In the scene, they bend down, pick up a piece of paper, and read it as if it was a line in their scene. And it's funny, we didn't know what they were doing, but we still understood why people were laughing. They're laughing because it was their idea. They love laughing at the thing they suggested. It really was like a lesson in dissecting why we laugh at certain things and how language works and a lot of that stuff.
And it's out of context.
Total. Yeah, exactly. It's like incongruity is like sort of like the DNA of comedy, and total absurdity.
Surprise.
Yes. And so we saw that, and we were walking out, and Dean goes, "You should try to get booked here." And we laughed and then go, "Why not? Why not try to get booked at this Turkish comedy club?" So I think I went and talked to like a guy outside, and I was like, "Hey man, this guy was Hassan, and he, we told him we were comics and I wanted to get up." And he's like, "Well, we exchanged emails, and, so I, the way the
So he spoke English. He spoke English.
He did.
Okay.
He did. Yeah. And there was a lot of people there that spoke, enough to kind of varying degrees that could kind of communicate. So we went back to the cruise ship, and I emailed him. And the way that the cruise worked is we were in Istanbul like 3 times, I think. And there was always 2 weeks in between each dock. And I think we would do an overnight there and then leave the next day. So I had emailed over the next couple of weeks and never heard back anything. It was very similar to trying to get booked in America. And, so they were doing it right as far as it goes. So I get back there, and I was like, I'm going to go back there again. And so I go back again, and I look up this, there's a guy named Yamas, and Yamas is like, I'm like, "Hey, I want to get, booked at this comedy club." And he explains they don't speak English there. And I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll learn just enough. And he's just kind of like, there's a guy, he's like, all right, he sends me upstairs. And so I go upstairs, and there's just like, it's completely dark in this comedy club. and there's just a group of Turkish men. Now, the way that this comedy club, it was upstairs and it looked over Taksim Square. And there's like these 9 Turkish men in the dark. All you can see is the glowing ember of their cigarettes. And they have a camera pointed down at Taksim Square. And they're just taping people down there walking around. And it was weird. Okay. And Hassan said to like, so I like walking in, it's the place is obviously closed. I'm not supposed to be there. And then, like you said, they're all smoking. It's so funny. I think some of them had 2 cigarettes in each hand, you know. And I bump a chair, and they all turn around and look at me like, "What are you doing in here?" And I was like, "Hi, is Hassan around?" And they're like, "Why do you want Hassan?" And I was like, "Well, I was trying to get booked here, you know, to do stand-up comedy." And you know, they sort of like. This guy, his name was Ali Bieber, and he was like the most intimidating guy I had ever seen in my life. You know, like the Turkish men all have this like badass look to them. They kind of got like they could be henchmen in a side hustle. You know, they're like tough, but then it's funny because they all walk around holding each other's hands, so they're like there's this softness to them too, and you know, and he's just sitting there, and he's like. He gives me his card, you know, and he basically is like, you know, email me. And I was like, all right, I think I'm going to get booked at this like comedy club, you know? And so he like told me to talk to this guy, you know, talk to Yilmaz next time I'm in town. And so, well, I start then trying to figure out I'm like, great, I'm going to get booked at this show. So the hard part was done. Now I just have to figure out how to speak Turkish. Okay. So I go to buy, I buy, because I'm just BSing my whole way. I'm just telling them I think I can figure it out. It'll be fine. Work for Second City. I go and I buy a learning how to speak Turkish, you know, CD book, right? And for the next 2 weeks, you know, while I'm out on the cruise ship, I'm learning as much Turkish as I can. But I quickly realized that unless all my jokes are about, you know, days of the week and where the library is, I'm not going to have, this is not going to work. It's just like, okay.
So, there's no translation at this point, right? There's no cell phones. There's no computer. There's no. Well, you were emailing, though.
This is like 2008. You know?
I see. Okay. So you couldn't just do like Google Translate.
No. I mean, yeah, I wish. I mean, yeah. You know, that would be, it's amazing. Right now, it's funny. During one point in the pandemic, I got bored with Twitter. So I kind of just started using Google Translate to talk to people around the world, you know? Like there was this group of Swahili.
On Twitter.
There's these group of Swahili guys that I was like talking to because I could use Google Translate to like use that to speak Swahili back and forth to them. And it was pretty fun. A lot of it was about their town that I couldn't really hang
Jumbo.
Yeah. But I knew what was going on in their town, and
it was still about very small things, right? So how do you translate comedy in another language, you know, and what's funny to them?
Right. So, you know, you when you're working on an international cruise ship where a lot of your passengers are not English speaking, you do have to, you know, we were doing, I think 14 shows a week, and we were building shows around the idea of like, you know, what are bits we can do that you don't have to know the language? You know, physical bits are very good. I'm a very physical comedian. You know, there's some stuff in that. And I had a couple of ideas of how to like sort of utilize the Turkish that I did know, but I realized the CD thing wasn't going to work. So the next time I got back to Istanbul, I go to this Turkish coffee house that I'd gone to a couple times. And I go to the guy and I say, hey, you know, I try to explain to him, I'm doing this comedy club. I'm going to be doing this stuff. Can you help me translate these jokes that I want to do into Turkish? And he says yes. So he helps me out. He helps me write all this stuff out, helps me put together an act. And it's amazing. And so now, and he tells me how to say it, everything. And I now have, and it's phonetically all spelled out. I think I have an act I can do. I'm excited now. I have my Turkish act, right? So I'm practicing it, and I'm trying, a lot of this is like, because it was like over 10 years ago. I think we were in Istanbul for like maybe the overnight. So we were there for like more than one day. Yeah. I'm going over everything, and I'm like, okay. So I go down, to the Old City Comedy Club on the date. There was like a date that we had kind of decided with Ali Bieber last time I was in town, and I get there, and he's completely forgotten that I exist. And, this is all I've been thinking about for 2 weeks. And he's like, Who are you? What are you again?
Right.
Yeah. He's like,
another tourist.
Yeah. He's like, come back in 2 weeks. I was like, no, this is the last time I'm here. I'm not here again. This is my last shot at going up at this comedy club. I have to go up tonight. And there was another guy there. His name was Tarkan, and Tarkan. And he was a Denver comic, or he spent time in Denver, and he spoke perfect English and perfect Turkish. And he was like, "Are you American?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he helped me get booked on the show. And I was like, "I have to go up tonight because I'm not going to be here again." He's like, so he spoke to Ali, and he's like, "Hey, can you help this guy?" He's like, "But this is an all Turkish comedy club. This guy doesn't speak Turkish." He's like, "He'll figure it out." So then I go, "Hey, will you help me out? Make sure my set is good." He looks at my set and he goes, "I understand why the guy translated it this way, but the jokes aren't going to work the way he translated it." So the show's like in 3 hours. So now I have to he writes out he knows what I'm trying to do comedically, and he writes this whole thing out. So I go back to the boat. I tell Second City I'm booked on this all Turkish comedy club tonight. They can't believe it. They think it's hilarious. They all come out. I'm running around like Istanbul, just trying to like memorize this new this new Turkish act, and I think I finally have it. And so now it's the night of the show. All right. And I mean, when you get nervous, I hadn't gotten nervous for a show in years, but when you're sitting there going, maybe nobody will show up. Maybe it'll get canceled. Right. They start pouring in. There's and then the buzz of the people there. They're all talking and glasses clanging, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, they're all smoking, It's so funny. Their babies are smoking. They're all smoking. Dogs are smoking. Yeah, dogs are just, life is so hard. They're smoking. They're just. I should have said rough, but so I go in there and And now the lights dim down, all right? And they're like, "Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." So nervous. And it's time. And the MC gets on stage. And the MC speaks for about 2 solid minutes in Turkish in the most serious tone I've ever heard in my life. No jokes, no laughter, just business announcements, And then after 2 minutes, all of a sudden I hear a Nick, and that's my intro, right? God. And then so they play the music, and I go up on stage, and so I launch into my first joke, and my first joke was, and I have it right here. It's I believe it was Mahaba, Ben Nick Çok Turk Super, which is Turkish for "Hi, I'm Nick, and my Turkish is really awesome." Got a huge laugh. Right. Probably because I butchered it so bad. I probably said, "Hi, I'm Nick, and my Turkish is very truck," or something. And it just killed. And so I'm like, all right, we're doing pretty good. So then I do a bit, because that CD that I had was like such a disaster. I think it did skip at one point, and I was like, that's hilarious. So it gave me this idea. So then I try to speak into the audience. I'm like, I don't know how to speak to them. So I whip out the learning how to speak Turkish book. They see this. And then I start playing the CD that comes with it. And I'm repeating. He's like, "Mahaba," and then it starts skipping. And then I start doing this. Mahaba, kills. CD skipping in any language always destroys, and so I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. Right. Okay. And so then I go into my next bit, and my next bit was like, so I have this bit, and I thought a physical bit would work. I was like, I'm now going to Irish river dance for you, but only from the waist up. And the bit was I would always just put my hands on my hips and just bobble my head around. That was like the whole bit. right? So I'm trying to do the words for it. And I was like, Salande, Elande dance. So that's what I think it is. But apparently I butchered it. All of a sudden I hear Salande Ande. And I look over, Ali Bieber, who's the DJ, who's about 3 feet away from the stage, starts screaming my own material to me, correcting me how I'm saying it. So I'm like, Salan Alande dance. He's like, Salan Alande dance. I was like, Salan Alande dance. He's like screaming it at me. And I'm like just trying to hold it together. I mean, the Second City cast is dying. They just can't believe it. And so I just like, and I kind of just point to him like, wait, whatever he said, you know, do it. It gets a laugh, and it's like this is going so great, and that's where it turns. That's where I the next bit I just thought, okay, I've done the talking. I've learned enough to kind of get by to say these things, you know. And I had this bit where I used to play the Flaming Lips song, Do You Realize? And I would pantomime locking my keys in the car. And it was a whole 2-minute pantomime of me like walking out of the car in slow motion, realizing it was, do you realize? And checking my pockets, getting a clothes hanger. I start doing the whole thing. Nothing. I mean, absolute silence, disappointment. You could hear the embers burning of 50 cigarettes. And it just like was just so, one guy is losing it. And I can't tell if he's just, because it's, I mean, I am bombing in a way I've never bombed before. And it is a long 2-minute bit because I do the whole song. And that's basically how the set ends.
Wait, isn't that the song that says that everyone you know will die?
Oh, yes. It's on so many levels how poetic it is.
Dark.
It's so, I mean, and then
dark.
Do you realize this isn't working? I don't know if the words, do you realize, I didn't think they were that pivotal to the song. I thought the pantomime, you know, I thought, and I didn't, maybe people in Turkey never lock their keys in the car. That's an American thing. Maybe they thought it was more informative than funny. I don't know, but it was like, it was a beauty because it was the best of both worlds. It was killing and bombing in a completely foreign language. I talked to, afterwards, you know, I talked to the guy who helped me out. I realized that the coffee house guy, the reason that I realized that what had happened is that he didn't get that I was performing at a comedy club. He thought that I was going to a club. And I think he thought I was trying to learn phrases to meet women. So, because he said that's how it looked like it was translated. So he thought that I was going to go to a Turkish dance club, walk up to Turkish women and say, I will now dance for you, but only from the waist up. And then bob my head around and then think that that's how Americans think they can get women and stuff, which is just so funny.
So funny.
And then, so afterwards, there's these 3 Turkish comics. And they all said, great job. That little, camaraderie of whether you did good or bad, they tell you good job. And they asked if I would sit around and watch them. And I said, absolutely. And I sat there and watched. They all did half hours each.
Oh my
I didn't understand a word of what they said. They were all the most unanimated comics I've ever seen. They all just stand there. They have headset mics, which is funny because for someone to be not physical and need a headset mic is hilarious to me.
That's so strange.
It's just how they do it, I guess. I bet they are physical Turkish comics.
But it's interesting. I mean, stand-up is so about a microphone on a stand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even call it like stand-up mic. You know what I mean? Like, That's just what it is to me.
It's there's never a headset in the logo. It's always a mic in some goofy manner,
I know, like, in other words, was he like a tour guide on a bus that needed a headset? Like, what was the... was he landing planes?
Just came straight from the fast food job and went right to the... It's funny because so much comedy is you do what you see other people do. Or it's so like, well, I think this is how it's done. So, or whenever I would see comics get out a set list, it's like you mentioned Shakespeare, they never get out a set list if they can't remember their lines. But in comedy, this is accepted. And I think it's only accepted because they see other people do it, and if the other people, so I think if one guy uses a headset mic, well, then I'll use a headset mic because and that's how it happens. And
well, what did you use on stage?
I think I had like a microphone. I don't remember putting a headset on. This was.
And
their
how
choice.
Much time did you have?
I think I did like 5 to 7 minutes. I mean, it was not because I think I did. It wasn't a lot. It was just.
Did you get a light?
I think so.
Did they do
or he
a
just
light
screamed
over there?
at me to get off stage. He was to have the guy not only the guy who books you, who's also the DJ, who's also the most intimidating guy you've ever seen in your life, screaming your own words. You're screaming your own jokes at you. I think. But I think he also understood as soon as the pantomime bit was over, I was done.
I think that is like so brave, but yet it's also so, it's like, why not? Nobody in the world is going to know you did, like nobody's going to see you, but your friends.
I mean, you do it.
And you can make them laugh.
Story. I mean, I think that's truly what it is, And you also do it because I just wanted the experience. I thought it'd be funny to do. I think so many things we do in our life, it's like, it
is funny.
Whether you put yourself under, in underground or, you put yourself in these like different scenarios because you do it for the story. For comedians, a lot of times we just do it because we think it'd be funny to do if there wasn't a world. Yeah.
Just to get a reaction.
So much stuff I do stuff. I mean, during the pandemic, the things I did for myself, like for nobody, that was just to entertain myself because I thought it'd be funny to do. I made at one point in the pandemic, I got so bored. I made a person out of a coat hook stand lamp thing and had it bent over because I wanted to see if I could scare myself in the morning. And I made it look like a guy. And then I woke up in the morning and I scared the crap out of myself. And I did it just because I thought it was funny to do. And I didn't even tell it. I forgot that I did it until like 9 months later.
So
I was like, I should tell people about this because it was funny.
Were you in New York then during the pandemic? We still are.
Los Angeles.
But I mean,
Los Angeles.
Okay, yes. Good. And do you live in LA now?
I do live in LA now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And
good. Well, that means I might be able to see you sometime, or I'll do a show with you, and I'll get to know you now. I'm excited.
That would be awesome.
You make me laugh.
In this world,
are you in an improv troupe out here?
I am not. I have a couple friends. I do stuff with time to time, but it's like during that pandemic, after this, it's like I don't even remember what I used to do sometimes. I gotta like Google what my life was and who my friends were and what shows I used to do. I want to add this part. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, because I do, I always doing sketch and improv, performing with other people is so much fun. Part of the great thing of comedy is meeting people like you and meeting people, that I like performing with. And part of the Istanbul thing was like meeting these other comics I thought was so interesting too. Like one of my favorite parts about it was that afterwards, when I'm doing that thing where the comics sit around, I got to ask the comics, they were like, they go, "Thank you for watching us." And I was like, "Sure." And they go, "What did you think of our act?" And I go, "It was amazing." One question: what were you talking about the whole time? And and the first guy goes, "What did you think I was talking about?" I go, "Well, you had a phone at one point." He goes, "Yes." He goes, "Movie Scream?" And I was like, "Scream from like the 90s?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, I do a parody of movie Scream, but instead of murderer calling, it's Turkish men. And I was like, well, that writes itself. That killed me.
So he was pretending like he was Drew Barrymore in the kitchen on the phone.
Yeah.
And she's not she's talking to a Turkish
Yeah, Turkish man's calling him. And so I can't even imagine what the jokes were.
It's so
but,
absurd.
It's so absurd. I was dying.
You must have been losing it. What did the other guys say?
The other guy was like the cool guy, like the Lenny Bruce. He was smoking a cigarette,
Well, yeah.
He was like, I was talking about too many things to really tell you about any at all. And I was like, oh, right on, man, right on. And then the last guy was like 6'5", and he goes, my whole act is about how I'm tall. And I'm in. That was so funny.
I'm in.
30 minutes of tall jokes.
Now, wait a minute. I wanted to ask you something else. Hang on. Let me think of what it was. Oh, so first, of course, there were no women, right?
No, there weren't. There were in the improv show. In the improv show, it was like, I feel it was pretty balanced, half and half. And I think I talked to one of the girls afterwards, and she was like, I do like I'm on TV.
Oh, I see.
In Istanbul. I do like a TV thing, and then this is like another thing that I do, which I thought was cool to see, like the scene.
Sure, yeah. And then what were the comics wearing? Were they like in suits?
I don't really remember. I think I have a picture. I took pictures of some of the guys, but I feel it was pretty like typical of,
American.
Yeah, like t-shirts and jeans. Yeah, it was pretty par.
It just, it's all so very funny. Were you there? Well, is it always hot in Turkey? I can't think of the latitude.
Gosh,
was it hot? Was it hot when you were there?
I can't remember. I don't remember it being hot. I think we were there in like a not hot time of year because I remember, I don't know, for some reason, I just remember like sipping hot apple. They had like a hot apple tea after our, and I remember that like being very like perfect for that, like, it wasn't too hot for hot apple tea.
They give you apple tea everywhere in Istanbul. If you walk in and you like to a rug store, oh my God, you're going to have more tea. Sit down, have tea everywhere you go to buy something. They want you to have tea first. And then there's this,
that's so funny.
They'll give you, I remember people giving me boxes of tea, like this apple tea. I don't know what that's all about. Real quick, that Old City Comedy Club, was it like at the end of a road, like it's like in a T and there's cobblestone out front?
Yes, I mean that's it.
No,
I think I might have.
I do remember
some
being
I
there.
Can send you, but that's got to be
because it was
it.
Taksim Square, and it was a really pretty street. I remember it being very beautiful.
It was that area. That has to be the area you're talking about.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
It was so amazing. It was like, because there was all these, you drink the Ephes beers and you have the strawberry hookahs and just, it's like open air.
Everything's outside. All the cafes are outside. Yeah. But then you see the regular stores, there's Zara, there's the Gap, there's, it's interesting when you travel overseas that you still see so much American stuff.
Yeah. That's why, I think, there is elements of that there, but, when you see so much of the we went to the pyramids, and one of what I thought was the funniest parts of the pyramids is if you turn around, there's a Pizza Hut KFC right across the street. No one's ever shown this ever. You literally can take. I took a picture of my video camera. What am I, 80? And I
and
my son showed me how to work it.
Yeah, and you see the Pizza Hut. Yeah,
there's the Pizza Hut KFC. It's that you see this American thing, and we took like we took a cruise on the Nile River, and there's like some Gold's Gym, but so that's why I really like Taksim Square, because even though there's elements of that, there's so much of it is very unique to
for sure.
Turkey.
Outdoor smoking and drinking. What do they drink? What's that whiskey? It's like a dark whiskey they drink.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know.
It almost is like that licorice one. What's that called again?
Oh, like the ouzo or something like that.
Yeah. I think it is ouzo, because that's like a whole Mediterranean thing.
Right, but I don't want it to be confused with because Greece has their own thing too, and I think they get it's funny going there and then reminding you of the turkey, grease beef that they use.
Well,
there's
it's
still
more than a beef. I mean, the Turks slaughtered. They slaughtered the Cypriots. They slaughtered. Yeah, so it's more than a beef. But I hear.
So I don't want to get their liquors confused.
Me neither, man.
They'll be offended.
Hey, listen, what a treat to meet you and to hear this story. Congratulations again on Disingenuous. You guys, again, check out Disingenuous. It's everywhere. You can find it anywhere you want. So Amazon Prime, that's like the best way. Well, at least because I have it and then the big screen, but whatever. The point is, you really have such great content. You're so very talented. So thank you again so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. I hope we get to the world opens back up, LA opens back up, and we get to do a show together out here. So.
Yeah, or I'll see you at House of Pies or something. Something will happen.
Yes, that'd be great.
All right, you guys, we got to wrap it up. Like I said, you can find Nick over on Twitter at Nick Vatterott, and also check out his website, nickvatterott.com. Blah, 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 storyworthypodcast.com. I'm at Storyworthy. I'm at Story Smash. Yes, we know this. And of course, if you're not already on my mailing list, you should join that. Would you do that? Storyworthypodcast.com. Little thing clicks up and then you join and then I chat with you. And, it's good. It's fun. Good times. Happy New Year to you, Nick.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. And you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Nick Vatterott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Christine Blackburn saying, make it a story worthy.
You can follow me. I'll take you down to the river. Follow me. I'll keep you silent.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
I'll keep you satisfied.
Cedar Point's Frontier Festival is back and brimming with new flavor. From May 26th through June 19th, this Old West-inspired street fest will fill Cedar Point with live bands, nightly hoedowns, and a hubbub of family activities. Yep, you'll find wheelbarrows packed with sunflowers and characters straight out of the frontier, but you'll also discover 25 cherry-inspired dishes and over 65 cocktails, seltzers, and beers. Get all the fixins, plus savings to boot with the Frontier Festival Bundle, which includes admission, parking, and a tasting card. Only at cedarpoint.com.
Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. If you love the sports like me, you get annoyed with your team or player. So Progressive's going to help take your mind off your team or that player for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they lost that thing recently, think about Progressive letting you compare our direct rates side by side with competitors to easily find the lowest option. Don't worry, your sports ball team or player will get him next time. Hope this distraction from Progressive about easily comparing rates was helpful to not think about that last game or match or season. I mean, even though I love sports ball.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.